Diplomacy is clinically dead. The lukewarm handshakes witnessed in recent days were essentially a cheap charade, the greatest smokescreen in contemporary history, orchestrated to cover up a massive iron purge that was about to begin on the 12th of October in the year 2026. The Middle East has exploded into a nightmare scenario that will be studied by military strategists for decades. In one terrifying night, Iran has activated a devastating dual missile drone assault, a ruthless, perfectly coordinated strike that has shattered the defenses of Hifa, Israel's crown jewel port and strategic lifeline. 200 precision-guided ballistic missiles and 900 deadly loitering munitions and suicide drones. A total of 1,100 projectiles rained down on Hifa in a savage, unrelenting barrage. This was not war as the world has known it. This was something far more lethal, a terrifying fusion of brute force and cold precision. The first wave of 200 high-velocity missiles slammed into Israel's air defense network like a sledgehammer, instantly overloading Iron Dome batteries, exhausting David's sling launchers, and forcing the Arrow system into total crisis mode. Millions of dollars in interceptors were fired in minutes only for the real killer to arrive. While Israeli radars screamed with thousands of incoming tracks and command centers descended into chaos, the second wave struck with terrifying cunning. 900 low-flying suicide drones skimmed treetops, dodged radar, and exploited every blind spot and reload gap with ruthless efficiency. The result was apocalyptic. Massive fireballs erupted across the port facilities of Hifa. Critical fuel depots exploded in towering infernos, sending thick columns of black smoke visible for dozens of kilometers. The port that handles 35% of Israel's entire maritime trade lies crippled. Naval repair facilities burn. Energy infrastructure that powers northern Israel has been brutally hit. Satellite images reveal at least 7 massive impact craters and raging fires still consuming strategic assets. This is a scene of destruction Israel has not witnessed in its modern history. In a single night, Iran and Hezbollah achieved what entire armies failed to do in weeks of past conflicts. They did not just test Israel's defenses, they broke them. Deep inside the White House Situation Room, the atmosphere has turned ice cold with shock. Live feed streaming images of Hifa in flames have left senior officials speechless. An administration that repeatedly boasted of maximum pressure and restored deterrence now watches one of America's most critical allies suffer a devastating blow with painfully limited options to respond. For a leader who promised unbreakable strength, the sight of Hifa burning is nothing short of a political and strategic catastrophe. This is no longer business as usual. This is the terrifying dawn of a new era in modern warfare, where patience, technological mastery, and overwhelming asymmetric firepower have combined to expose the deadly vulnerabilities of even the most advanced Western-backed defense systems. The old rules are dead. And right now, the world is holding its breath, wondering one terrifying question: how far will this fire spread? What exactly happened during those terrifying 2 hours over Hifa? How did Iran manage to coordinate more than 1,200 missiles and drones to systematically destroy the defenses of Israel's most important port? Why was this dual missile drone attack so much more effective than anything seen in 2006, 2021, or even the events of the 12th of October? How is the current administration reacting as one of America's closest allies suffers direct precision strikes on its economic lifeline? And why does the United States appear paralyzed despite its overwhelming military power? And most importantly, what does this devastating assault reveal about the true balance of power in the Middle East and the beginning of a dangerous new era in modern warfare? Tonight, hell descended on Hifa. In a single merciless night, Iran unleashed a terrifying dual missile drone assault that ripped through Israel's northern defenses with shocking ferocity. What unfolded was not just an attack. It was a calculated slaughter of the illusion that Israel's skies were impenetrable. 200 screaming precision-guided ballistic missiles led the charge, tearing across the sky at supersonic speeds. Their mission was clear and brutal: complete saturation. These missiles slammed into the heart of Israel's vaunted air defense network like a sledgehammer from the gods. Iron Dome batteries were instantly pushed to the breaking point. David's sling and arrow systems fired desperately, launching interceptor after interceptor in a frantic attempt to hold the line. Millions of dollars in advanced munitions were burned in minutes. Then came the real nightmare. While Israeli radars were blinded by chaos and command centers descended into absolute pandemonium, the second wave struck with cold, demonic precision. 900 lethal loitering munitions and suicide drones, Iranian engineered killers, flew low, hugging the terrain, dodging radar locks, and exploiting every single gap created by the first wave. They swarmed like angry hornets, patient, intelligent, and utterly relentless. The result was apocalyptic. Hifa, Israel's strategic crown jewel, was engulfed in flames. Towering fireballs erupted from massive fuel storage tanks, sending thick, choking columns of black smoke billowing thousands of feet into the sky. The port that handles 35% of Israel's entire maritime trade, a lifeline worth billions, was brutally mauled. Container terminals collapsed under direct hits. Naval repair yards burned fiercely. Critical power substations were obliterated, plunging entire districts into darkness. At least 7 major impact sites lit up the night like wounds across the city. Satellite imagery captured the horror in real time. Raging infernos consuming strategic infrastructure, secondary explosions rocking the harbor, and the once proud port of Hifa transformed into a scene of devastation. This was no random barrage. This was a masterclass in modern hybrid warfare. The operation was executed with terrifying sophistication. First, the ballistic missiles created overwhelming volume and pressure, forcing every defensive system into maximum overload. As interceptor magazines ran dry and precious reload time began, the drone swarm exploited the temporary paralysis with ruthless efficiency. Where the missiles created chaos, the drones delivered death with chilling accuracy. For the men and women operating Israel's air defenses, it was a living nightmare. They watched helplessly as their sophisticated systems, long hailed as the best in the world, were systematically overwhelmed. Physics proved merciless when hundreds of threats arrived simultaneously. No finite defense can cover every angle. Gaps appeared, interceptors ran out, and the strikes landed. What makes this attack truly historic is the scale and coordination. In the 2006 Lebanon War, Hezbollah fired around 4,000 rockets over 34 long days. Last night, Iran and its proxy delivered 1,100 advanced projectiles, 200 missiles, and 900 drones in just a few terrifying hours. The psychological blow may be even greater than the physical damage. For decades, the Israeli public has been assured that Iron Dome would protect them. Last night, that promise went up in flames along with the port of Hifa. As the sun rose over the burning skyline, the harsh new reality became undeniable. Israel's legendary technological superiority in missile defense had been violently challenged, and in critical sectors, it had been pierced. This was not merely an escalation. This was a declaration that the rules of engagement in the Middle East have changed forever. The dual missile drone attack on Hifa has exposed a terrifying truth. A determined adversary armed with patience, preparation, and hybrid warfare tactics can now overwhelm even the most advanced Western-backed defense systems on Earth. And the fires still burning across Hifa stand as silent, smoking witnesses to this new and dangerous era. What happened over Hifa last night was not an accident of superior numbers. It was the deadly result of more than 15 years of patient, brilliant, and ruthless technological investment by Iran. This was hybrid warfare at its most advanced, a perfectly synchronized dual missile drone system designed from the ground up to defeat even the most sophisticated Western air defenses. Let us tear apart the technology that made the nightmare in Hifa possible. First, the 200 precision-guided ballistic missiles. These were not crude rockets. These were advanced systems, most likely upgraded variants of the Iranian Fateh 110 family, or similar solid-fuel ballistic missiles. Each missile carries a heavy warhead, travels at supersonic speeds, and uses a combination of inertial navigation, satellite positioning, and terminal seeker technology. Their circular error probable, the measure of accuracy, has been reduced from hundreds of meters to just a few meters. That means when Iran decides to hit a specific fuel tank or naval repair dock in Hifa, the missile actually hits it. But raw accuracy alone was not enough. The real genius was in how these missiles were used as a suppression weapon. Their mission was to overwhelm the Israeli air defense network, force every battery to fire at maximum rate, and exhaust the limited stockpile of expensive interceptors. Then came the second, even more terrifying component, the 900 loitering munitions and suicide drones. These were not simple hobbyist drones. These were purpose-built kamikaze weapons, many based on Iranian designs such as the Shahed family, Arash, or newer indigenous variants. They fly at very low altitudes, often below 100 meters, making them extremely difficult for traditional radar to detect early. They use terrain masking, passive sensors, and advanced autopilot systems to navigate through valleys and around mountains. Some are equipped with electronic warfare pods that can jam or spoof Israeli radar and communication links. What makes these drones truly dangerous is their ability to loiter, to wait patiently in the air like a predator. While the ballistic missiles created chaos, these 900 drones circled, identified gaps in the defense, and then dove in for the kill with a precision that shocked Israeli commanders. This dual-layered architecture is the core of Iran's new doctrine: volume plus precision plus exploitation. The ballistic missiles provide the overwhelming volume needed to saturate and exhaust the defense. The drones provide the precision and persistence needed to exploit the resulting gaps. Together, they create a lethal synergy that no single defensive system can fully counter. Even more impressive is how Iran built this capability under intense international sanctions and constant Israeli surveillance. Instead of trying to smuggle complete missile systems, which are easily detected and destroyed, Iran transferred something far more dangerous: the knowledge and manufacturing technology. Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps engineers taught Hezbollah how to produce critical guidance components, rocket motors, and drone airframes inside Lebanon itself. Hidden underground factories and dispersed workshops in the Bekaa Valley and southern Lebanon now allow Hezbollah to manufacture and assemble these weapons on site, dramatically reducing dependence on vulnerable supply lines from Iran. The tunnel infrastructure supporting this arsenal is equally staggering. Southern Lebanon contains one of the most extensive underground military networks ever built by a non-state actor. Hundreds of kilometers of hardened tunnels house launchers, command posts, storage facilities, and even small assembly lines. Many of these tunnels survived years of Israeli airstrikes precisely because they were buried deep and cleverly concealed. The human element behind this technology is just as critical. For over a decade, Iranian advisors have lived and trained alongside Hezbollah fighters, not just transferring technical knowledge, but also operational doctrine and command culture. The result is a fighting force that can coordinate complex multi-wave attacks involving over 1,000 projectiles with remarkable discipline and timing. Last night's attack demonstrated several breakthrough capabilities. Swarm intelligence allowed drones to operate in coordinated groups, sharing data and adjusting targets in real time. Electronic warfare integration meant some drones actively degraded Israeli sensors while others struck. Cost asymmetry was stark. Each suicide drone likely cost between $20,000 and $50,000, while each interceptor fired by Israel costs many times more. Iran forced Israel into a financial war of attrition it cannot win in the long run. Survivability is ensured by the distributed underground and locally produced nature of the arsenal, making it extremely difficult for Israel to destroy through preemptive strikes. This is what makes the dual missile drone attack on Hifa historically significant. It is not just an improvement on old tactics. It represents a fundamental evolution in asymmetric warfare, turning low-cost, relatively simple platforms into a strategic-level threat capable of challenging a modern high-tech military. For years, Western analysts dismissed Iranian and Hezbollah capabilities as crude or improvised. Last night, that comfortable illusion was incinerated along with the port of Hifa. The 200 ballistic missiles proved Iran can reach deep and strike hard. The 900 drones proved they can be precise, patient, and relentless. Together, they prove that technological superiority alone is no longer enough when it faces strategic patience, industrial ingenuity, and unbreakable will. Hifa was not destroyed by luck. It was destroyed by design. And that design, this terrifying dual missile drone architecture, has now been battle-tested in the most demanding environment possible against the most advanced air defense network in the Middle East. The message is clear and chilling. The era of unchallenged Israeli air superiority is ending. A new era of hybrid, high-volume, precision swarm warfare has begun, and Iran has just shown the world exactly how deadly that new era can be. As the fires raged across the port of Hifa and black smoke choked the Mediterranean sky, another crisis was unfolding thousands of kilometers away inside the White House Situation Room. What began as a military strike on Israel rapidly transformed into a political and strategic nightmare for the United States. Sources close to the administration described the atmosphere that night as tense, angry, and increasingly desperate. Live satellite feeds and real-time intelligence streams showed Hifa burning, fuel tanks exploding, naval facilities damaged, and critical infrastructure in flames. For an administration that had repeatedly promised ironclad support for Israel and maximum pressure on Iran, the images were nothing short of a public humiliation. The administration now faces an excruciating dilemma. On one hand, there is immense domestic and political pressure to respond forcefully. Hawks in Congress, pro-Israel lobby groups, and large segments of the American public are demanding immediate and decisive action. America must strike back, they scream. Anything less is being portrayed as weakness. On the other hand, the cold, brutal calculations of power paint a very different picture. American military planners know the terrifying reality. Any direct strike on Iranian territory or Iranian forces risks triggering a cascade of consequences that could spiral out of control. The greatest fear in Washington right now is the Strait of Hormuz scenario. Iran has spent years positioning anti-ship ballistic missiles, coastal cruise missile batteries, fast attack craft swarms, submarines, and naval mines along the narrow choke point through which nearly 20% of the world's daily oil supply flows. If Iran decides to close or seriously disrupt the Strait of Hormuz in retaliation, global oil prices could spike to $200 or even $300 per barrel within days. The economic shock would be immediate and devastating, skyrocketing gasoline prices in America, crashing stock markets, and severe damage to an administration already fighting on multiple domestic fronts. This is not theory. This is a scenario that has been war-gamed repeatedly in the Pentagon, and every single simulation ends with the same warning. Direct military confrontation with Iran carries unacceptable economic and political risk. Even more concerning for Washington is the evolution of Iranian military capabilities. The same dual missile drone technology that overwhelmed Hifa's defenses can also be turned against American bases and assets in the region. United States air bases in the Gulf, carrier strike groups in the Arabian Sea, and logistics hubs across Iraq and Syria are all now vulnerable to the same kind of saturation and exploitation tactics that worked so effectively last night. The administration's response so far has been a mixture of strong rhetoric and limited action. Public statements have been tough, promising unprecedented support for Israel and warning Iran of severe consequences. Behind the scenes, the United States has accelerated emergency arms shipments, shared real-time intelligence, and moved additional naval assets closer to the region. But notably absent is any direct kinetic strike against Iranian targets. This cautious approach is being interpreted very differently by different audiences. In Tehran and Beirut, it is being read as hesitation, even fear. Iran has successfully calibrated its attack to stay just below the threshold that would force American direct intervention. By operating primarily through Hezbollah, Iran maintains plausible deniability while still delivering a devastating strategic blow. In Israel, the limited American response is causing deep frustration and growing anger. Israeli leaders feel abandoned at the moment they needed America most. Private conversations in Jerusalem reveal a bitter sentiment. Where is the superpower we were promised? For the American president personally, the political damage is severe. Having built much of a brand on strength, decisiveness, and restoring American deterrence after what were called years of weakness, the sight of Hifa in flames with America, seemingly powerless to prevent it, strikes at the heart of the political narrative. Domestic opponents are already labeling it the Hifa humiliation, and the phrase is spreading rapidly across conservative and liberal media alike. This crisis has also exposed deeper structural problems in American grand strategy in the Middle East. For decades, Washington relied on a simple formula: massive military superiority plus security guarantees would keep allies loyal and adversaries deterred. Last night, that formula failed in spectacular fashion. A non-state actor backed by Iran managed to overwhelm one of America's most important allies using relatively low-cost asymmetric weapons. The message to every other United States partner in the region, from Saudi Arabia to the Emirates, from Jordan to Egypt, is crystal clear. American security guarantees may no longer be sufficient in the new era of hybrid warfare. Meanwhile, America's global rivals are watching with calculated interest. Russia sees this as a welcome distraction that ties down American attention and resources. China views it through a longer strategic lens. Every blow to American credibility in the Middle East creates more space for Beijing's economic and diplomatic expansion through the Belt and Road Initiative. Both powers understand that the United States is being forced to choose between protecting its ally and protecting its own economic stability, and that choice is painful. The administration is now walking a tightrope. It must appear strong enough to satisfy domestic audiences and Israeli demands, yet restrained enough to avoid triggering the Hormuz nightmare or a wider regional war that could derail the United States economy and political future. This is the harsh reality of great power politics in the 21st century. Enormous military capability does not always translate into usable power when the costs of using it have become prohibitively high. Hifa is still burning. American credibility is under unprecedented strain, and Washington is discovering in real time the painful limits of its own power in a rapidly changing Middle East. The dual missile drone attack has done more than damage a port. It has exposed the widening gap between American rhetoric and American capacity to enforce its will. And that exposure may prove to be the most dangerous consequence of all. Beyond the missiles, the drones, and the burning port of Hifa lies a deeper, more decisive battlefield, the battlefield of human will. In modern warfare, technology can win battles, but only unbreakable will can win wars. And last night, the world witnessed a stark, uncomfortable contrast in the strength of that will. On one side stands Iran and Hezbollah, a force forged through 4 decades of relentless pressure. Sanctions, assassinations, cyber attacks, sabotage of nuclear facilities, and repeated military strikes have rained down upon them since 1979. Yet instead of breaking, they adapted. They industrialized. They turned isolation into self-reliance. The Iranian people have endured medicine shortages, currency collapse, and the daily humiliation of economic warfare designed to crush their spirit. Their leaders have been hunted and killed, their scientists assassinated, their infrastructure attacked. And still they continue. This is not mere stubbornness. This is a deep, almost religious conviction that their sovereignty, their dignity, and their right to resist foreign domination are worth any price. That conviction has been transferred directly into Hezbollah. For years, Iranian advisors did not just teach them how to build missiles and drones. They taught them why they must fight. They instilled a culture of sacrifice, patience, and long-term strategic thinking. When the order came to launch 200 ballistic missiles and 900 drones against Hifa, there was no hesitation, no panic, no debate about red lines. There was only disciplined execution. Fighters who had trained for this moment in dark tunnels and hidden bunkers moved with calm professionalism. They believed in their cause. They believed in their destiny. And that belief gave them the courage to act when others would have faltered. Now contrast that with the other side. For decades, Israel has relied on a sacred social contract with its people. Our technology and our military power will keep you safe. Iron Dome was more than a weapon system. It was a psychological shield. It promised that no matter what the enemy threw, Israeli civilians could sleep peacefully at night. Last night, that promise was shattered. Families in Hifa woke to the sound of sirens and the terrifying buzz of hundreds of drones overhead. Parents clutched their children in bomb shelters, listening to explosions that shook the ground beneath them. For many, it was the first time they truly felt vulnerable in their own homes. The illusion of absolute security evaporated in the flames rising from the port. The psychological impact has been devastating. Israeli media, usually disciplined in wartime, is showing unusual cracks. Commentators are openly questioning how such a large-scale attack could penetrate so deeply. Politicians inside the war cabinet are already arguing bitterly over the right response. Public confidence, once rock solid, is beginning to fracture. This is exactly what Iran and Hezbollah intended. They are not trying to conquer Israel militarily. They understand that is nearly impossible. Instead, they are fighting a war of attrition against Israeli society itself. A war designed to make the cost of continued conflict unbearable. Every rocket that gets through, every drone that strikes, every night spent in shelters chips away at the Israeli people's willingness to endure. The contrast in resilience is becoming impossible to ignore. Iran and Hezbollah operate with strategic patience measured in decades. They absorb losses, replace fallen commanders, rebuild destroyed facilities, and return stronger. Their fighters are motivated by ideology, identity, and a genuine belief that they are resisting injustice. Israel, by comparison, is discovering the limits of a security model built primarily on technological superiority and external support. When that technology fails to deliver perfect protection, the social contract comes under immense strain. Questions that were once unthinkable are now being whispered in Israeli homes. How long can we sustain this? How many more nights in shelters can our children endure? Is our current strategy still viable? Willpower cannot be measured in interceptors or radar ranges. It is measured in the ability to absorb pain and continue fighting for a cause that people genuinely believe is worth the sacrifice. On that invisible battlefield, Iran and its axis currently hold a disturbing advantage. They have been hardened by decades of existential pressure. They fight with the conviction of the long game. They do not need to win every battle. They only need to prove that Israel cannot win either. Last night in Hifa, the world saw more than burning fuel tanks and damaged infrastructure. It saw the beginning of a profound psychological shift. The myth of Israeli invulnerability has been wounded. The confidence that American power will always protect them has been shaken. And the quiet fear that this conflict may have no clear military solution is beginning to spread. Technology can be countered.